Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a major Sunday update in regards to the current state of the US economy and some updated Trump approval numbers where they're like, well, this is the lowest Trump has been this term. This is all great news, guys. The approval is meaningless right now. Bassett has come out and talked about why everything within the economy, all the numbers we're getting, they are majority bullish. And I'm going to go through the dynamics of everything at play when it comes to the economy and a few other things, with Ben Shapiro interviewing Zelensky, saying now we need to support Ukraine because he can tell the United States is adopting this isolationist approach. We've seen this in the past with the United States, but especially now considering the problems we've had in the Middle East. And Shapiro is realizing, like, and we even saw it yesterday, Zelensky say, well, we want to have a relationship with the United States like the United States has with Israel in terms of our support for Israel, which we're trying to, a lot of us are, separate that in and of itself. So there's not going to be a crazy relationship like that. But it's just funny that Zelensky said that and compared Ukraine's relationship to Israel's, because obviously everyone would like to have a relationship like Israel has with the United States. But take a look at this. Time to slash income taxes. When tariffs cut in, many people's income taxes will be substantially reduced, maybe even completely eliminated. Focus will be on people making less than $200K a year. Also, massive numbers of jobs are being created with new plants and factories currently being built or planned. So I said a few weeks ago, they came out and said, yes, we've made $21 billion already in tariff revenue. That's real. That's legitimate. They originally estimated if they kept all the tariffs on, it would be around 700 or 800 billion per year in revenue alone. The auto tariffs alone are around 100 billion, but that's going to be cut down because the Trump administration they've already reduced the tariffs on pretty much all the countries outside of China and also Mexico and Canada. But we would expect a separate trade deal with Mexico and Canada to where there wouldn't be tariffs on the majority of products that come in. And there already aren't because of the North American trade agreement. There's a lot of those products that are already protected from being tariffed anyways. But the point is, in terms of revenue, I've said it's still possible because there will be, no matter what trade deal we do with China, there's still going to be tariffs on the Chinese. There were tariffs on China in 2017, 2018 when Trump came in his first term. And so there will be select tariffs that stay on China, meaning we will still generate revenue. Now, they're not going to be 145%. During negotiations, that number is going to come down on certain goods. But we're still going to generate revenue off of tariffs with China. And then when it comes to the other countries in the renegotiation process, that's to be determined. The point is that I do think we will make 9 figures in tariff revenue minimum. Now, it's a lot different in terms of 100 billion versus 800 billion, but I would say 200 or 300 billion wouldn't shock me in tariff revenue for the United States if Trump played relative hardball. Now, if you're only keeping them on China, it's going to be hard to generate that much money through tariffs. But can Trump really do this? Will there be a huge focus to go after some of these major corporations that use offshore accounts and major billionaires that do it? Apparently, Trump wants to do that. There's also been talks about Trump slightly raising taxes on rich people. I'm not kidding. I'm being honest. That's another thing. We know how liberals are obsessed with that. Imagine Trump does it. They would somehow find a reason to criticize it as well. But the point of it is we're looking at a deficit of $2 trillion. We're trying to find the money. One of the ways to find the money is through tariffs. It's revenue generation, especially if Trump wants to cut taxes when it comes to his campaign promises, like no tax on overtime and other things like no tax on tips. And so, listen, you've got to do certain things. You're able to generate revenue. Will this really eliminate income taxes? I think it could reduce them for people under 200K. The math doesn't really work in terms of fully eliminating them. But again, if you're talking about select people, it's not select people, it's most people. I mean, most people in the United States make under 200K, but because of our capitalist society, we've got extremely rich people paying most of the taxes anyways because of the amount of money that they make. And so you can kind of manipulate that capitalist system when you're talking about all of these people bottlenecked under 200K that don't pay much in terms of taxes relative to other extreme high earners that are paying millions and millions and millions of dollars in taxes every year. You can manipulate it to lower or maybe even completely eliminate income taxes on people, whether it's under 200K. I know he said a few months ago it was going to be under 150K. There were going to be no taxes at all. Just the revenue over that gets taxed. And so this seems like it's a very challenging thing because we do have a $2 trillion deficit, and Trump did say he wants to up the military budget to around $1 trillion. That's a raise of about 150 billion. I thought Trump was going to lower the military budget, he said, by 8% over 10 years or 4 years. We'll see what happens with that. He might raise it. It's a bit of an issue because that's major spending, and we know if we want to try and eliminate the deficit, it's going to be hard to do if you're raising the military budget by $150 billion. We might not even generate $150 billion in tariff revenue. But the point is, you can manipulate this to allow for less taxes on people making, whether it's under 200K or under 150K, if you can find the money in terms of the tax evasion that we see from major multi-billion dollar corporations using offshore accounts. And that's really just a win-win for everyone. And so I think that might be Trump's play. The tariff revenue is certainly going to help. But again, the problem is it's already $2 trillion in the hole every year. So you're fighting from behind. Now, you're not going to eliminate the deficit in 1 year or 2 years. That's impossible. It would crash the economy. But the idea is it's a weaning off period to where we slowly chop into it. And whether or not Trump's able to do it, you've got your doubts because of the military budget, because of the lack of incentive into looking into entitlements. It's a it's like a lose-lose issue right now. At some point, they're going to have to say, well, Social Security is not sustainable. We're not going to be able to pay it out because there's not enough people. There's not enough workers to pay for the current people on Social Security. So that's going to have to be looked at maybe in the 2028 election. Ideally, it would be looked at right now, but it is a problem in terms of it makes you radioactive when it comes to an electorate that really has no appetite to see their Social Security cut or restructured, but it has to be restructured. It's impossible to continue this way. And there's so much fraud and just money loss in it. And there's so much fraud also in Medicare and Medicaid. They estimate around $200 or $300 billion. That's what we really want Doge looking at. And that's why people say, well, Doge, it's kind of been a bust. They said, well, we're going to save around $1 trillion. We're going to eliminate spending of $1 trillion. And they've only gotten 150 billion, but they did eliminate U.S. aid, although that was only 20 billion. But it's important considering the amount of bloat there. And so we'll see what Doge ends up doing over the next year. I think Doge is going to stay for another year. Musk is going to back off because liberals started really threatening Musk and attacking his dealerships and bombing them. And it's really bad. And so Musk is like, well, for my safety, I have to step back. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, this is an interesting thing. We've also got this thing with Ben Shapiro. So you can see back in 2005, Ben Shapiro, war with Iraq is right for America. And so this is the big problem with Shapiro. And more people are realizing it. They're understanding that it's not even that Shapiro's a double agent to where it's dual citizenship, U.S. and Israel. He supports Israel over the United States. And it's a big problem, especially when he's the main leader and the main voice of the Daily Wire. And people see with this war between Israel and Palestine, and now it's even a higher level thing with more catastrophic consequences, the potential bombing of nuclear plants in Iran that Israel wants to do, that the United States doesn't, that Vance, Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, Trump, they've all come out against it, and they want to negotiate some type of nuclear deal with Iran. The United States right now, and Shapiro knows this, he's a cunning dude, he has the self-awareness to realize we are turning into a more isolationist country. I mean, we were very isolationist in World War II. The only reason we got into World War II was the call to action, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. You had Germany sinking U.S. submarines in the Atlantic, and Roosevelt really wanted to get into World War II, into the war against Germany, but he just couldn't because of the United States citizens saying, no, we don't want to do it. So we have a history of this, but now it's next level with how we've been burned with these wars thousands of miles away, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq. And so now you've got the situation in Iran where people don't want to do it. No matter what the nuclear deal is, honestly, it really doesn't matter. Trump knows that his legacy cannot be starting a Middle Eastern war with the United States paying for it or sending troops in. I know they've threatened to do it. That's kind of Trump's negotiation tactics, to threaten it. The United States is not necessarily negotiating from complete strength in these nuclear talks because of what Trump did in his first term, where he ripped up the original agreement. Iran has limited patience for the United States because of that. It's understandable. But the point here is we just want to avoid any war in the Middle East. And it's obvious that Israel desperately wants to weaken Iran. They're the number one adversary right now to Israel in the Middle East. So you have Shapiro understanding, and he did his interview with Zelensky. He came out and said, well, my big takeaway is we need to fund them. And he referenced Afghanistan, and he said the United States didn't go hard enough in terms of funding them and helping them. And he referenced Vietnam. And he said, well, the reason the Viet Cong were able to take over was because we backed out and half-assed it. He really wants foreign spending, and he understands if the United States continues with this approach, we see it with Ukraine. I mean, Trump immediately cut off Ukraine from funds. Now they've since been restored, and the intelligence we're giving Ukraine is ongoing because Ukraine agreed to a ceasefire. And Shapiro is right. This does seem like it's Russia that is not willing to play ball. I don't know if Putin is getting pressure from Moscow, because I've heard that in terms of the territory they currently have relative to what they've expended. A lot of Russians think they should have more Ukrainian territory. Under Trump's 7-point peace plan, it's around 19 to 20% of the territory being annexed, the 4 oblasts and Crimea, and then Crimea being recognized as Russian territory. So Russia right now doesn't want to play ball, but Shapiro's like, well, my main takeaway is we need to support Zelensky, and where the money is going, we don't know. I don't care. But I mean, we know how corrupt Ukraine is. When you are talking about billions and billions of dollars in military equipment over a short period of time, there's going to be some loss somewhere. And that's why Zelensky really doesn't want an audit. Now, whether or not that happens, I mean, we'll see in terms of this potential minerals deal. Shapiro said, well, he definitely wants to do the minerals deal. But why hasn't he signed it? Trump said it was going to be signed on Thursday. It still hasn't gotten signed. They were going to sign it on February 28th. The White House spat happens. There was another report they were going to sign it like 3 weeks later. It never happens. Trump is truth socialing almost daily about this minerals deal not being signed, and it's been on Zelensky's desk for like 3 weeks or whatever. Listen, I don't know what's happening with the minerals deal, but just from an outside perspective, it seems like Zelensky is really slow playing it. And I think there were some complications in terms of them being accepted into the EU, and that's going to be the compromise. They're going to be able to join the EU. They're not joining NATO. But I mean, the whole point of this is the U.S. is getting more isolationist, and Shapiro sees that, and he understands it's a big problem in terms of support for Israel. And so that's why, Shapiro does the whole meeting with Zelensky. They have the talk, and we'll see what happens with that situation. But it's just interesting to see the dynamics of it. We've also got this update. Do you approve or disapprove of the Trump administration's program to find and deport immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally? So we're still looking. Well, this is nice. The net was +8 about 3 weeks ago. Now it's +12. So more people seem to be in support of this. Wow. Independents +8. By the way, that's after all the fake Maryland man stuff with Garcia and everything like that. So there still is. And by the way, we have seen some polls that are a little bit more negative in terms of the immigration issue. But that is a good poll. We've also got this. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just went nuclear after the experts' market crash prediction fell flat. Well, he's absolutely right. Talking about the Great Depression 10 days ago, 10 days later, the NASDAQ is now up in the month of April. It has definitely seen a rebound. The NASDAQ has, the stock market in general. And so the question here is, when it comes to the dynamic of the economy, you're seeing this, you're seeing all these metrics, but then you're also seeing Trump's approval rating maybe falling a little bit. This is CNN. I know people don't like this. They say it's bias. But to me, tariffs being -30, is it really surprising? No, it's not. This is a very reactionary type poll. And people see that right now tariffs cause turmoil within the economy. Well, they're a stabilizer, and initially they will cause a negative. Absolutely, I agree. The thing with tariffs is over time they will pay off. And the other thing is, you look at the economy right now. Inflation is lowering. We'll see what the numbers are on the 10th, but it's been lowering. Trump's first 2 months in, true inflation's at a record like 4 or 5 year low. The energy sector with crude oil is down to a sweet spot price, which is where we want it, like in between $50 and $70 per barrel. We're going to have the interest rate cuts happen. Maybe not in May, but probably in June. There's going to be multiple cuts this year. You have QT potentially easing. You look at experts in Wells Fargo and other banks, they say, well, QT is easing and we are going to go into a QE period starting next year. So we have so many, and by the way, this is before a single deal has been done in terms of trade, because all these countries are still in this 90-day holding period where they have to make and negotiate with the United States to have new free trade agreements or whatever you want to call it. Those are all being renegotiated right now. When those get done, that's more bullish news for the market. The market is already recovering without a single deal being made. And we have to watch for inflation. We understand that. It's a bedrock. As long as it stays down, we will get the interest rates cut within the next few months. Trump is being a lot nicer over the past week to Jerome Powell. He knows that, and I think Trump is probably realizing they're not going to cut in May, but as long as inflation stays the same or goes down, the core inflation, they need to be cut in June 100%, because we're going to stabilize the inflation, especially we're going to stabilize it even more. They keep talking about these tariffs. What are they going to do in terms of the inflationary aspect of it? Well, if we make deals with all these countries and then make a deal with the Chinese maybe in July, they're going to have to cut the rates. They're going to be forced to, and they're going to continue easing QT. And so that's the real stuff you have to understand. But, this immigration stuff, these numbers, I mean, to me, Trump is definitely still positive. I don't know how he was only +3 in March and now -9. I mean, I guess you could say, well, the fake news and the immediate reaction to Garcia. And I mean, that is a gang member that was illegal and got deported. That's what happens. And he has other issues in terms of assault. And so it's just, there's a lot of haziness right now. I think some people are mad about Trump for not deporting enough people. Some people are also mad. The liberals are just not going to be happy about him deporting any people. They think everyone should stay. And so you're trying to balance it out. But these numbers to me they're not a big deal at all. We're not close to midterms. The economy will be in, we would surmise, a great place Q1 of 2026 going into Q2, Q3 with the midterms happening there right at the beginning of Q4. This is as bad as it's going to get. I know people are like, oh, you're coping. No, I'm just saying, based off of all the metrics, you look at everything and you zoom out on it, this economy is going to be an amazing place a year from now. 100%. I mean, it's already showing signs of recovery, but I don't like looking at the short-term stuff, but I'm saying, and Besant is right. They're like, oh, it's going to be terrible. It's Black Monday. We don't even have a deal yet, and we're already seeing this recovery. The deals are going to be very bullish with the countries, the trade agreements. And so I wouldn't be concerned about something like this. You can say CNN's always been on the lower side when it comes to Trump approval anyways. The top experts say, well, his approval is about even right now if we had to predict. And so CNN, of course, says, oh, he's -18. He's at 41% when they're like, well, it's about 48 with some people undecided. Those are the metrics that I've seen. So his approval rating is about even right now, which is amazing when you compare it to where it would have been back in 2017, 2018 with an economy like this. They say, well, they're losing faith in Trump and the economy. Well, no, this is all done to lower the rates. When we get the rates lower, we'll be able to refinance the $6 trillion with 2% rates. The rates have to come down. They're going to be forced down. They're forced down. We're done with this. We're not doing this prattle with Powell to where we play footsie together and, oh, maybe they'll be cut and maybe Trump will get. I mean, the other thing with Powell that's funny, and you look at Elizabeth Warren and what she said about the rates back in September of 2024, they're like, yes, we have to help the Democrats win. We know inflation is probably not low enough to do this, but we will be lowering the rates. We admit we have to help the Democrats. It's September. It's going, October. It's going to be big. We're going to lessen it to give it a better economic situation for Kamala. We have to have her win. And so now you fast forward these 7 or 8 months, inflation is way lower than it was in September when they cut the rates. But now they don't want to cut the rates for Trump. They can't do it because they say, oh, it's all unknown. What about the inflationary aspects of the tariffs? Well, then Trump is making all these deals to not even have the tariffs in place. The tariffs don't even cause that much inflation anyways. It's not even, it's select sectors, and that's what it's going to be. So this is all crap. These approval numbers, the top people say, well, he's like +2, +3 in approval on average, and they sample a lot of liberals with this type of stuff. So it's important to understand, but even like, oh, he's negative in tariffs and in immigration. if for immigration, I mean, I understand people think he should deport more people. I get it. You have to understand they didn't think that there would be this many people, and they're overwhelmed, and they don't have the money to set up an infrastructure for ICE to deport these people. I think it's a problem, and they need to up the amount of money that's allocated for ICE deportations. I agree. It needs to improve, and so it will improve. But, you know, that they had the new budget, or it wasn't the new budget, it was the CR that did raise money for deportation. So hopefully that ends up happening. But, you know, the point of it is here, I mean, even in this, like, you look at these different polls, CBS has him plus 12 in terms of immigration. CNN has him like -3. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But Trump wants to do this. Will we raise the amount of money necessary to get rid of income taxes? It's possible because of capitalism. It's possible 100% because the rich pay so much and the middle class pays a lot less in terms of the overall burden on tax revenue that's generated by the U.S. government. You can manipulate this and potentially almost, I mean, it's going to be hard to eliminate because, again, it's like we have to find the money somewhere. The money is not going to come from the tariff. I mean, it can partially come from tariffs. I don't know how many tariffs Trump is going to keep in place. You know, if you keep all the tariffs in place, I mean, it's already down to a 10% rate on all these countries anyways. But if you keep it in place to where it was, then yeah, you're talking about maybe not $1 trillion, but you're talking about $700 or $800 billion in revenue. You still could potentially generate around $200 or $300 billion in revenue. And you do something like that. You do some other things to limit spending. Doge supposedly has saved $150 billion. Then they dispute and they say, no, it's not true. Well, then why don't you go prove it? They keep saying, well, Doge really hasn't saved $150 billion. Really? They got rid of the Department of Education. That's $100 billion. They got rid of U.S. aid. That's $20 billion. But oh yeah, no, they haven't saved anything. So see, they're manipulating it and they're going, I'm not saying Doge has been great. I mean, I think Doge has done some really good things though. And Musk is like, yeah, we realize it. We have to look at the Pentagon. They're not letting us. I don't know what's happening there. But they're like, you're not touching military spending. Don't even look at it. There's no audits. I mean, I thought there was going to be an audit for it, but we'll see what happens. Either way, guys, you look at all this, the approval, it's like plus 3, plus 4, plus 5, something like that. You know, I don't know what it is exactly. You know, I've seen metrics. You look at the internal numbers, they're a lot better than they release the bad stuff. So it's important to understand that. But it's like, well, Trump is doing so bad, the economy's doing so bad. Well, no, the economy's recovered to a degree. Gas prices are down. Job creation, especially U.S. native job creation, is up significantly. We're not giving it to foreign immigrants. Biden really bloated his job creation. Well, remember, with Biden, they would lie about the job numbers. They just lie about them and then give them to the media. The media will lie. And then they'll correct them 5 months later and be like, well, no one remembers. When the job numbers come out, let's just blatantly lie and say, just make up a number. And that's what they were doing. That's why they would have all these corrections. Remember, they would come out with like, oh, it's a correction 7 months later, but that's their plan. They say it's such a high impact when the job numbers come out and then you say how good it is. We can make the correction in the weeds 7 months later and then have CNN barely focus on it and have MSNBC not really talk about it. They'll say, well, there was a correction here and this is the real number, but we don't really remember that anyways. And so they do the corrections. That was with the job creation. But then you even had liberals being like, well, wait a second. These are all second and third jobs. Why is Biden bragging like this is a good thing? This economy is so bad with inflation and the true inflation was 11%. Why are they bragging about people getting second and third part-time jobs because of how bad inflation is with the economy? And so even liberals started saying that. I mean, that's just the point. So you can manipulate these numbers. That's the reality of it. So the point is, we've got amazing metrics. We've got lower inflation. We've got lower energy costs. And they're like, well, it's going to be a recession with the energy prices. It's unlikely. But even if it's a mild recession, I mean, you know, Biden had a recession with a much higher inflation rate, and that would be classified as stagflation, by the way. But remember, they started talking about stagflation, and then they stopped because they realized that was their new thing. They were going to be like, well, it's stagflation. But these metrics are so good, they can't even do that. I mean, you're talking about the easing of QT. You're talking about lower interest rates. You're talking about lower inflation. You're talking about more job growth. And so potentially lower unemployment. This is what we want to see. This is the bedrock of the economy. And it's like, well, the tariffs, but we haven't even negotiated a single deal. Can we negotiate some deals and isolate the Chinese and put pressure on China to come to the table? That's the goal. And I think it's going to happen, at least with some of these countries. So India is going to happen relatively soon. Japan is going to happen. Imagine that's going to be a big hit to the Chinese. The Chinese are going around threatening countries, telling them not to negotiate with us. They're going to be pigeonholed once we start negotiating these free trade agreements with countries. And they're real angry about it. And a lot of liberals are obsessed about it. And now liberals are saying, we love China. We love the CCP. We hope they beat the United States and make Trump look bad. But this is not going to happen. We're going to make a deal with Japan and South Korea and some of these other Asian countries, Taiwan, Vietnam. So this is all happening, and so this is why the economy is going to be so good in a year. That's the point of it. So Trump's approval, it's like even, it's positive. It's people seeing it's like, oh, it's minus 19. Really? It's minus 19 Trump's approval rating when Trump is like the most popular he's ever been, and there was going to be this initial turmoil, and even independents say, well, we know there's going to be turmoil. It's short-term sacrifice for long-term success. And so they understand that. So that's really what it is. And Trump's doing it. And now Trump is coming out saying, no, we're done. We're not fighting Israel's wars. We're not going to go to war with Iran. Vance has said, no, we don't even want to bomb the Houthis. We're sick of it. That came out in the signal leak. This is an and now the pressure is on. Rubio's like, we're just done with people dying in Eastern Europe. This is the last chance. We're giving you an ultimatum. Vance says the same thing. Trump says the same thing. Now Trump is meeting with Zelensky at Pope Francis's funeral. And he wants to get this done. He really does. And you have to put pressure on these countries. And Putin's going to have to, he's going to have to come to the table. How do you get Putin to the table? There might have to be a show of soft force to get him to come to the table, because right now he doesn't want to. So this is all stuff this is all in the pipeline. It's all in the pipeline. The war is potentially ending. The Israel-Palestine situation, it's complicated. There's really no right answer. Well, you could try a two-state solution. Trump said it's probably, Trump negotiates, so he says, yeah, we're going to annex it. It's a negotiation thing. He knows the Arab states would control it as an economic zone. And they said they would give like UAE and Saudi Arabia said, yeah, we'll invest $53 billion into Gaza to rebuild it. But he's also told Netanyahu, this is bad what you're doing. You need to allow food, water, and supplies to go into Gaza and help those people. So he's even come out against that. So he is really looking good in terms of the anti-war stuff. And he knows a war, like a proxy war with Iran in the name of Israel, would definitely weaken his support within the Republican Party. And that's why Republicans have come out against it. And he knows that his base would be very angry, and it's not going to happen. Now, Iran isn't in the best mood to negotiate with the United States because of what happened back in Trump's first term. But still, these are positive developments in the Middle East. These are positive developments within the U.S. economy. And it's like, well, Trump gave in and said he was going to keep the tariffs on with Liberation Day. Trump is proactive. We saw the yield spike and we had to remove the tariffs. I mean, there's certain indicators you can't really argue against. The 10-year US yield is the gold standard. The 10-year yield goes up with the economy tanking, it's a problem. It should be going down because more people are buying the yields and putting money into safer places. But we didn't see that happening because all of the foreign countries were selling their yields at crazy rates, including China and Japan. So that's what happened there. And so you adjust it. You had to adjust it. People are like, well, he shouldn't have done that. Well, I mean, listen, you could say it's a panic move, but at least we get these negotiations with these countries. It's a 90-day period. It puts a window on it. It puts a time frame to be able to negotiate with these countries. And so we'll see what ends up happening in terms of that. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.